In just over 80 days, anything between 12 and 18 million Kenyans will go to the ballot in what is billed as the most complex general election since independence. With 6 ballots to cast and a large field of candidates to choose from, the voter, you, will have an unprecedented task. Yet, with all the excitement about alliances and coalitions, the voter is asking questions which we're not even sure are the right ones. So tonight, we begin the crucial journey of making news more than just a set of stories. On this show, we'll get you to meet your leaders and engage them in ways you've never done before. Here, we'll ask the leaders about all the tough questions, and as they seek your vote, we'll bring them to account even after the election. This is Newsline, a program that makes news a conversation. Good evening. My name is Louis. Let's see what we've lined up for you tonight.
I am running for president to lead a movement of Kenyans to be able to confront these challenges head on.
Wipers Day, Kalonzo guns for coalition ticket. Charity Ngilu defects again. She's gone full circle now. 8 days to go. Where are the voters? And of course, we have those who write about these stories and compile these stories for us. These 2 gentlemen will join us in just a moment when we start rolling out the stories of the day. I have another piece, very special to me, a new one called Mshamba's Diary. And this is an area where you learn comedy does teach. We begin at the Moi International Sports Center, Kasarani, where Wiper delegates have in the last several hours endorsed Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka as their choice for president. The party's delegates were holding their conference in Nairobi, gave the Vice President a go-ahead to challenge Prime Minister Raila Odinga for the presidential ticket of their newfound alliance. KORD, KTN senior political reporter Aaron Ochieng has more from Kasarani.
Just 3 days after ODM endorsed Raila as its presidential flag bearer, the Wiper delegates took their turn at the same venue, where they too gave the mantle to their leader, Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka.
We resolve this National Delegates Conference has resolved that our candidate for president is His Excellency Dr. Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka.
On paper, it now means that Kalonzo will face off with Raila Odinga for the Coalition of Reforms and Democracy KORD presidential ticket. Kalonzo reiterated that working with Raila Odinga's ODM and Ford Kenya's Moses Wetangula presented the country with top-notch leadership that would transform the country.
And we have begun to lead by example. Who in this country would have hoped that Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka will embrace Raila Amolo Odinga? And therefore, my friends, my fellow Kenyans, let us embrace hope.
Raila and Wetangula, who were also present, affirmed that their newfound political friendship with Kalonzo is about a fight between the haves and the have-nots, saying the Jubilee alliance of Uhuru, Ruto and Mudavadi could not be trusted with leadership.
Mali yote ya umma ambayo iliibiwa inarudishiwa umma. Sisi tunawauliza kama wako tayari kurudisha mali ya umma ambayo waliiba.
It will not be easy. Those who want quick fixes may fall off, but the team will move. Those who want quick fixes may change their mind, but the team will move. Those who want quick fixes will look for excuses, but the team will move.
In attendance were members of other political parties that formed KORD, including Kenya Solidarity, the Independence Party TIP, KADU, UDM and Muungano. It could be argued that it is a coalition that was hurriedly put together, or doubts can emerge on whether Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka and Prime Minister Raila Odinga can really work together. But the new KORD alliance, it is an alliance that cannot be underrated. Aaron Ochieng, KTN at the Kasarani Gymnasium here in Nairobi.
Elsewhere, Kalonzo's arch-rival Charity Ngilu has defected yet again, this time from the Coalition for Reform and Democracy Accord, which she joined barely a week ago. The now Kenya leader has rejoined the Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto Jubilee alliance. Wiper Party's Johnston Muthama has dismissed Ngilu's exit, claiming it is inconsequential to Acord's political fortunes. Ngilu claims the Accord alliance was not willing to conduct presidential nominations and that it was already decided that the Prime Minister, Raila Odinga, was the automatic flag bearer. It is not yet clear what position, if any, Ngilu will be vying for in the Jubilee coalition. Ngilu's defection is only the latest twist in the perennial supremacy contest between her and Kalonzo Musyoka. The two have traditionally been on the opposite sides of the political divide, only coming together occasionally. So, who's on the right side of politics this time around? KTN's Rita Tinina takes a closer look.
Last week's reunion of perennial rivals Kalonzo Musyoka and Charity Ngilu, who came together under the Coalition for Reforms and Democracy, may have come as a surprise to many.
Lakini tumesema hayo sasa iko nyuma yetu. Ni lazima tuyagange yaliyo mbele.
But for two people who have been at loggerheads for over 2 decades, the newfound union was perhaps too good to be true. Charity Ngilu got off on the wrong footing with Kalonzo Musyoka. Ngilu ventured into the Kamba political equation in the early 1990s at a time when Kalonzo, a protege of the late Mulu Mutisia, was already a staunch KANU figure in Kambaland. Ngilu, who entered the scene on an opposition ticket, was seen as a spoiler out to erode KANU's hold in the region. That battle for supremacy and the control of the Kamba vote has characterized their bitter rivalry since then. The two ceased their hostility, albeit briefly, in the run-up to the 2002 election. Kalonzo, then part of a group of KANU rebels under LDP, and Ngilu, a key member of the NAK, found themselves together for the first time under the National Rainbow Coalition. But just over 2 years later, they found themselves on opposite sides again during the 2005 constitutional referendum. Ngilu supported the draft constitution, Kalonzo was against it. He was dismissed from the cabinet alongside other ministers over the successful no campaign on the draft constitution. But the Kalonzo-Ngilu war would not end there. In 2007, Ngilu supported Raila Odinga's bid for the presidency when Kalonzo Musyoka was vying for the same seat on an ODM Kenya ticket after falling out with Raila. And even with a strong ODM Kenya wave, Ngilu managed to survive the political currents, carving out her space in Kitui, and the two later came close to mending fences.
Anybody who thought they were going to use Ngilu to fight Kalonzo must forget it.
But that promise of unity did not hold.
And
their rivalry reached new heights. The Kalonzo-Ngilu political enmity was an open secret that played out in public. But now it appears Kalonzo may not be the only headache for Ngilu. In July this year, she declared that she would support Raila's bid for the presidency. 2 months later, she launched her own presidential bid. But her political dilemma was not about to end. She gravitated towards the National Alliance, where she was apparently offered a 15% stake. But the 60-year-old water minister was not done yet. Just as Kalonzo and Raila were about to sign a pact at the KICC, she arrived and put her signature on the same document, only to bolt out barely a week later, back to the so-called Jubilee Alliance that brings together TNA, URP and UDF. For Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka and Charity Ngilu, it has always been a love-hate relationship. Ngilu's latest move now means that they are once again on different sides of the political divide. And with what promises to be a hotly contested election, their supremacy battles can only intensify. Rita Tinina, KTN, Nairobi.
The Vice President, Kalonzo Musyoka, may appear to have an upper hand in Ukambani politics for now, but the picture is not as clear in the presidential race. Kalonzo is widely tipped to be Raila Odinga's running mate for the March 4th general election. Observers see this as yet another missed opportunity for the Vice President in his quest to become the country's president. But as KTN's Emmanuel Talam reports, this will not be Kalonzo's first big miss.
When he joined KANU rebels in walking out on former President Daniel Moi in 2002, many thought Kalonzo Musyoka was the favorite for the presidency for the alliance of the rebels. He was among top KANU chiefs protesting Moi's endorsement of Uhuru Kenyatta as his preferred successor.
Ikiwa huyo ambaye atang'ang'ania atakutana na Uhuru Kasarani, ikiwa ni Raila tutamuunga mkono, ikiwa ni mimi tutawanyorosha.
But his fellow rebel Raila Odinga had different plans for the alliance, which was by then operating as the Liberal Democratic Party. In a move that surprised many and changed the politics of Kenya, Raila endorsed Mwai Kibaki as the man to face Uhuru in the transition election. Kalonzo's first chance of becoming president just evaporated.
Wa Jamhuri ya Kenya na kuitumikia.
Kalonzo nursed his wounds as Minister for Foreign Affairs until late 2005, when they were kicked out of the cabinet. He had joined government rebels to oppose the proposed new constitution.
Mimi mwenyewe nilisema the referendum itself ni illegal. Na ndio tunaenda kupiga tukatae hiyo illegal referendum. Tupigie kura tuseme no. Tutasema nini? No.
On the opposition, Kalonzo reactivated his suppressed desire to be president. In the run-up to the 2007 election, Kalonzo appeared the man to beat in the election. Opinion polls showed him leading his close rival Raila Odinga, but things changed. Kalonzo bolted out of ODM Kenya. He promised to beat ODM's Raila Odinga and PNU's Mwai Kibaki.
Kibaki akiwa pande hii, Raila akiwa pande hii, Kalonzo anapita hapo katikati.
In the election, Kalonzo emerged distant third. His second chance had gone up in flames. But as fate could have it, Kalonzo indeed found himself in between the two. After the bungled election, he was named Vice President.
Vice President.
For the last 5 years, Kalonzo has been billed the man to watch in next year's election. As Vice President, he remained the obvious choice for Kibaki's successor, at least within the PNU circles. But that too is turning out to be another mirage. The President's handlers seem to be looking in another direction, that of Uhuru Kenyatta and Musalia Mudavadi.
Wakisema ni Musalia, sisi tutamuunga mkono. Shida iko wapi? Si ni Mkenya?
With his chances appearing to dim, Kalonzo has reached out to Prime Minister Raila Odinga for a deal. Even though he maintains he will run for president, those working on the deal say Kalonzo will be Raila's running mate on a coalition for reform and democracy ticket.
Na nilisema nitarudia, Kenya mbele na wengine wote nyuma, ikiwa tutaokoa nchi hii.
Kalonzo Musyoka believes he will be Kenya's fourth president. His supporters think that he has given so much and that this is his turn. But with the ongoing political intrigues and realignment, it is not given that this is Kalonzo's turn. Emmanuel Talam, KTN, Nairobi.
You know, sometimes they bring you these stories, you see them reporting and you wish to ask them some questions. You even wonder why there's value for certain stories to be on air or even to be read in the newspaper. Well, this is why, in making this a conversation, I'm going to be inviting the editors who both write in the paper and, of course, good stories for us on television. Joe Ageo, nice to have you on board. Why would you make us look at those stories in spite of the fact that it's all political now?
Well, at the end of the day, I mean, people are going to go to the polls on 4th of March and they have to make some choices. And these are the people that have put themselves out there to seek their votes. I think we have a responsibility to show what the people are doing, what we might think about them notwithstanding.
Some have called them just a sham. You know, they're just going through the motions.
Obviously, I mean, there are people who have called this a choiceless election in some respects, because, I mean, there are too many contradictions on both sides. On the one hand, you have this very big question of the ICC hanging over the candidates. On the other, there is the idea of reform, but then you have different questions you can ask about the reform credentials of certain people who are putting their names out there to be voted for.
Martin, what are you going to write for me in the paper tomorrow? And I've heard you discuss this on radio, and they're trying to make you a prophet. They keep asking you, who will win, who will go where? So what do you make of this current happenings?
I don't have the answers as to who's going to win or who's going to lose.
I feel sorry for you when they ask you this question.
I understand the agitation by people asking this kind of questions, because this country is always permanently on an election mood. And people want to know who. Believe me, the moment we finish these elections on March 4th, they will be on a campaign mood on March 5th, starting another election towards the next general elections. But they need to know who their leaders they're going to choose, who their leaders are going to be, who's going to take what position. That is what is dominating the entire political spectrum in this country. You go to the streets of Nairobi, you find groups of people just discussing politics. So it's something that is of great public interest. So
Kasarani has been called various names, Kichinjio, it has been called the House of the Rubber Stamps. Should we be excited about Kasarani?
That's where it all happens. I mean, whether you like it or not, that is where all the big decisions are made, whether it is the repeal of Section 2A in the early 90s or whether it is the Kichinjio you talk about. I mean, everybody goes to Kasarani when they want to make this sort of decision. So at the end of the day, I mean, you might say some dubious things have happened there, but hey, that is where all the big political decisions are made, especially at a season like this one where we are.
What is the term for people who defect then defect again? What do we call Charity Ngilu now?
That's a very tough question to ask us, because you're putting us on a no-code.
Because that's what you're going to write about tomorrow.
No, you lack terminologies. You say term codes today, you say, well, defecting, redefecting, rejoining. I mean, you run out of all those terminologies. But the question is, are voters out there worried about this? I'm not too sure about that.
This is one of the things that we find. I'm going to ask for a cartoon strip to run, because I know Martin and Joe, there's the question of who is pushing who is behind what efforts to get into power, and the two guys who seem to have been pushed. Let's just have that strip up. The first strip can go up. I'll have a look at this and discuss what it looks like. There you go. If you look at the strip, somebody's being asked to make up their mind. And somebody's saying, hey, go easy, stop pushing from the back. And somebody has his mouth wide open.
Well, guys, I think that would be, if I understand what the cartoonist has in mind, it probably has the Kalonzo Musyoka situation in mind. You remember when all his guys are saying, hey, you have to join ODM, this is where your future lies.
He looks reluctant.
And he was very reluctant. I mean, he said, I'm not joining anybody. And then a week or so later, they have a meeting and we have the Coalition for Reform and Democracy. Very interesting politics.
This is about I mean, making a decision. I think he was, the people behind him, they're the ones who chose the decision for him. Because, as you said, he has been pulling away from making that kind of decision. But the fact that he had to announce it for himself, they were giving him the chance so that he can be seen to be owning the process. But believe you me, it is other people who made that decision.
So this is not him. This is not his call. And even as we discussed that, there's another quick strip I want to run, because people are asking the question, so where does the buck stop? Whose call is it to decide where I'm going to go as a party leader?
At times, when your people who are behind you find that they are getting impatient and intolerant about you making a decision, they are forced to take up that mantle. Believe me, if we go back to history, even in the 2002 elections where we had our president indisposed, definitely if the truth will be told, you will know for a long time this country was being run by other people, not him.
Scary. I don't like that.
And that is the truth.
Look at that. Look at that now. Very brief question. Who could be the shadowy figure behind one Musalia Mudavadi?
Very big question. It is just as well that it is shadowy, because I think that is what
there's a bit of a haze. A bit of a haze and some little motogari there, a red one. So
I mean,
why has been subjected to this?
He might say he's his own man. I mean, if you ask him, that is what he will say. But I think the questions that many people raise about it is just how sudden some of the moves that he has made were. Remember when he was bolting out of ODM, there was this whole thing about the nomination rules and everything. They changed all that, but suddenly he went out. He had never been known to be that kind of politician who goes out and is strident about this and the other position. He was this sort of mellow character, and he would sort of go along, and suddenly he acquired this courage that no one could explain. And that's one thing that I think made people to believe maybe there is a hidden hand somewhere forcing him. Right now he's in a coalition that he joined in the 11th hour when everybody thought all the deals had been signed, and then the last minute.
Not by default.
You cannot join by design.
It's not by design.
Most of the times it's by default. Because how would you explain a last minute joining a coalition, and you see even up to now Ngilu is not even sure where she is.
Yeah, we're looking for a new word for that.
So at times it's by default, although in other instances it's by design as well. So, but it's an issue that whereas you might love or hate the leaders, they command their followers. Whereas even if they might not have the mind of their own, but they have the supporters and the people behind them. So that gives them an edge over the allies who are pushing them from behind.
Okay, Martin, I won't ask you what they normally ask you to predict, but just tell me in terms of expectation, what can you tell your readers going forward? What will they be reading about now that we've seen Kasarani happen once, twice, and this is moving on now?
Definitely, going by the turn of events that we've seen in the recent past, you've seen in terms of the other coalition, what they are calling Jubilee Coalition, you've seen the members of parliament allied to TNA, the way they came forcefully when the idea that Mudavadi was going to step down for their leader, and they were very annoyed. So, and the passion and the aggression that they showed tells you a lot that for sure Uhuru is the presidential candidate for that alliance, and Ruto is definitely the running mate. When you come to this other side, the NDCs that we've seen are just formalities. Definitely Raila Odinga is the presidential candidate and Kalonzo Musyoka is the running mate. That you can take to the bank.
Brave man, Martin, if you're going to declare that. Okay, I'm going to talk about a voter story just now, but before that, Joe, what is the expectation for the viewer now that we've lined all the stories up? This is where they're going to be looking at it.
Yeah, there will be. I mean, I'm just not sure whether it is cut in stone, as it were, that Uhuru Kenyatta will be the candidate. I think there are still very many big ifs around there, especially if you look at the tribal arithmetics that normally tends to dictate our politics. I think there still could be a Musalia Mudavadi presidential candidate for the Jubilee coalition. If you ask me, I think that's I really think that's going to be the candidate.
It can be a possibility. You can't rule out anything in politics, Louis. In terms of in the event that the ICC thing still hangs over their head next. In the event that somebody springs up and goes, there's still a case in court. Even there was one which was ongoing today. Is going to be reported tomorrow.
Martin, and these court cases don't scare these guys, man. No, I don't see anybody's neck buckling or shaking.
We have a judiciary that is moving, and in the event that some judge somewhere springs up and says for sure they don't meet Chapter 6 of our Constitution and they can't run, what options would they be left with?
Guys,
they could back Mudavadi as this.
I'll come back to you. But this is what I mean. Now you get to talk to the people who write these stories and the people who put them out there in the papers for you. Get tomorrow's paper with Dr. Martin, and as Joe has said, there's a chance for other things to happen. Meanwhile, to the growing worry at the IEBC, the Commission now says it has registered only 8.65 voters by the third week of voter registration. With a review target of 12 million, the IEBC now has to register some 3.5 million voters in the last week of exercise. Nairobi, Lamu and Kiambu have recorded the highest numbers. Asha Mwilo kicks off our new segment, Quote My Vote, where we meet the voter and get her take on electoral matters.
For the past 49 years, Nairobi has taken its rightful place as the political capital of Kenya. And now in the coming general election, we're seeing a lot of political activity and activism in Nairobi. When we talk about the voter registration, for instance, we know that Nairobi has recorded some of the highest numbers as compared to other regions since this process kicked off early this month. But as we're slowly finding out, some of the areas in Nairobi are recording lower numbers of voter registration as compared to the 2007 voter registry. One of the most politically active areas in Nairobi, the Kibera informal settlement, home to more than 500,000 Kenyans, according to the UN Habitat. But even with this high population and a rich political background, the clerks at the registration centers on the 22nd day of registration remained idle for the better part of the day.
Huku wasa walipigana sana, yani wasa walifight vibaya sana, wasa waliuliwa. So everybody wako na hiyo, mbona ni vote ama mbona nichukue kura ndio tena nikavote watu wapigane.
Octopizzo is one of Kibera's famous artists. He made his name by relating most of his music to his life here in Kibera and using the same talent to enlighten the Kibera youth about the power of their vote. His take on the ongoing registration process intrigues me further, and now I want to meet some of the voters in the heart of the slum. The residents here introduced me to 23-year-old Eric Owor, a Kibera resident who has dedicated his time to going door to door, conducting civic education on the upcoming general election.
And whatever I do in Kibera is to be able to sensitize young people and the entire community, to be able to come out in large number, to register and have that power to be able to make decisions when it comes to 2013 election.
The more time I spent in the slum with Eric, the more I understood the new attitude of the Kibera voter and their expectations for the next government.
Ndugu yangu wewe umejisajili? Kama mpiga kura. Kwa nini?
Number 1.
Hakuna mambo na violent na kelele raundi, kutakuwa poa sana. So long as watu wajisajili na wahesabu kwa venye inatakikana.
Tukipiga kura hivi, tujue ni nani atasafanya mabadiliko kwa nchi yetu.
Counties like Nairobi, Lamu, Murang'a and Kiambu have recorded the highest numbers of registered voters so far, and now the focus shifts to areas lagging behind. With only a week left, Mandera, Turkana and Wajir counties have less than 20% of the estimated voting population registered. Ashamwilu, KTN, Nairobi.
Well, the conversation continues. We've begun with our editors in-house, and now I take it outside. Mheshimiwa na Waziri, asante sana. Thank you for joining us on the inaugural show of Newsline. I know we haven't spoken in quite a while.
Yeah.
But you're in the action now. Where do you want to start? Harambee Stars, Kasarani?
I mean, too many balls in the air.
Pick one.
Yeah.
Tell me about Harambee Stars. Should we be happy or sad?
I think we should be happy.
Yeah?
We should be
I know
happy.
you went there.
I think there's a renaissance in the air. A renaissance in the air, and I had a fantastic time with the boys in Kampala, and I saw a new spirit. Everybody wants to see us going up. They say when you hit rock bottom, there's only one place to go, and that's up.
Right.
I think we have an opportunity to start moving upwards, and the performance of the boys in Kampala definitely could act as a template for us to start moving up.
All right, let's pick this up a bit. Tell me now about Kasarani. My editors are breathing behind my neck here. They've got questions for you. Where would you like to start this?
Kasarani has
Is this
taken on
going through the motions?
I don't think
Should
so.
we be excited about it?
I don't think
Is
so.
it democracy rolling out in truth?
Kasarani has become an important arena because this is where a lot of the big political events take place. One, because it's just appropriate. You have sufficient space there, and you're out of town. So it has become some sort of our Tahrir Square,
Right.
or our Trafalgar Square, where you go to make your big political decisions. And I don't think these political parties are just going through the motions. I think there's something in the air. And what is in the air is that political parties are definitely taking serious the new dispensation that places a lot of premium on political parties. We have certainly crossed the Rubicon, as it were, in the sense that the Constitution has now transformed political parties into constitutional entities. And now the Political Parties Act has addressed political parties with even more responsibilities, more character. And so seeing political parties gather to make critical decisions, like endorsing coalitions and determining who is going to be their presidential. I don't think it's just going through the motions.
And then telling us who the reformers are based on, I don't know what criteria, what decision?
I mean, everybody has a history. Everybody has a background. And I don't think there is any better way to judge a human being other than by looking at the sum total of their actions, of their utterances, of their contributions to whatever processes. It's not difficult really to say in this country with a certain degree of certainty who has stood on the right side of history of reforms. It's certainly not a difficult thing to say.
Joe's itching. Go, Joe.
And Louis,
Joe.
Without politicizing this matter, we certainly know.
Because
we have had 2 referenda, Louis.
Yes.
We know who has stood on what side anytime we have had to make the big decisions about transforming this country. And so let us not trivialize this matter on who has always been faithful, who has kept fidelity when it comes to reforms.
You've got the
Do you
history.
really believe that the people on right now in the Code Coalition are true reformers in the best sense of that word?
I can tell you for certainty that CORD is championed by the one Kenyan today who certainly towers above everybody else when it comes to reforms. Certainly you look at the political scene today and Raila Odinga has got no equal. He has absolutely no. Name me one man or woman.
Who are the people he has decided to team up with?
There are many people on that side. You can choose to look at the few people who have crossed the bridge and saw the light. I mean, even Paul was one day Saul, and he became Paul, and he became more of a man of faith than even those who carry the cross before him. But when you look at Raila Odinga, when you look at James Orengo, when you look at Anyang' Nyong'o, when you look at Gitobe Manyara, I mean, what is the common denominator
there are
among
those
those
who would
people?
rather just look at Ababu Namwamba.
Guess why? Ababu Namwamba is a fantastic reformer.
Yes.
Any day, anywhere.
Ababu Namwamba doesn't have shoulders carrying a lot of baggage. Martin?
Would you not talk of the same scenario on the other side? Maybe they could also have
William
walked through
Ruto,
the road to
Uhuru
Damascus.
Kenyatta, Musalia Mudavadi, common denominator.
What's
the
that?
science of the Nyayo state. Anytime, any day, conservative to the core. They are products of a system that was repressive, a system that was conservative, a system that resisted reforms to the hilt. And they have not crossed the bridge. That soul has never become Paul.
But even Raila Odinga worked with former President Moi. He was
Working with, I like your choice of words.
He was there. He was in the same government.
I like your choice of word. He worked with. He worked with, but he never became part of that caste.
He was the Secretary General of Kano, you know.
He was part of a process that was intended to transform, and he certainly did transform. He transformed from outside and even from within. And I think the implosion of Kano and the transformation that resulted from that, the NAC, the Rainbow Revolution, actually emerged from that.
Are we as a country coming to a point where we accept that even if you call yourself a reformer, at some point you have to team up with people who may have dubious reform credentials for you to achieve your objectives? Because as it is, even in 2002, we saw that same Raila team up with some people in Kano who had been identified, became the symbol really of the oppression that you talk about.
Joe, you know this better than I do, that every cause needs a champion. And in every cause, you have champions that have died or that have stood firm for that cause. And you have those who will always ride along. And what normally matters is that any cause going forward has a champion that leads that cause. This cause of reform, and as we talk about the Coalition for Reform and Democracy, you can look at that cast, and you may want to choose to focus your eye on the soul that became Paul, or you may want to look at the Peters and the Matthews, the disciples that have been there. They have stood firm, they have fought the good fight, and they have kept the faith.
I know I can call you Ababu, not because you're not a full minister, but I feel like that with you.
Yes.
Now, give me your reaction to what my editor said. They said, nobody is having a coalition by design, that all these things we're seeing are being done by default. Is anyone being unfairly shouldered into a particular position?
Louis, that's partly true, but it could also presuppose that all of us who play on the political scene are merely creatures of circumstance, that we do not plan, that we do not plot.
Okay, so tell us, where do we draw the line for the players now? Who's, by your standards, who's there by design, who's there by default?
Now, that would be highly judgmental, and it will highly be...
Babu, you're scared to commit on that one?
It will be presumptive.
You know these guys.
It will be presumptive.
You know
what I can tell you that a lot of the things going on the political scene today are by design. They're by deliberate planning, they're by deliberate scheming. And if there is any politician out there, a political leader worth the name, if there is any political party out there that has not been scheming, that has not been plotting, then really we should be worried as a country.
But what you guys are doing, you're scheming and plotting in boardrooms. When it doesn't come together, you run off to your villages and start crying foul. You never incorporated them in the first place.
I don't know
you
which
never
guy.
told them what happened there. Now you're telling us that everybody's scheming. Okay,
who are these guys that have been running to their villages?
One question from Martin and Joe before I let you go. Martin?
Definitely when things don't go right, as Lou says, you'd run to ethnic enclaves and try to woo up sympathy and support. But when you agree within the boardrooms, it's so easy to come out and say this is a deal and everybody has to follow you in that direction. So where do you draw the line in terms of the democratic principles that
Martin,
you're talking about?
I'll speak only for my party.
Exactly.
I don't want to speak for characters who actually bring shame to the scene of leadership.
You seem to know them, even though you won't mention
I don't
them.
want to speak for characters who masquerade as leaders, and they actually are a serious, they pose a mortal danger to democracy in this country. So I'll speak for my political party. ODM is an institution, and I think over the last 7 or so years that we have existed as a political party, we have demonstrated a very deliberate effort to respect institutions, to make decisions through those institutions, and to build a solid political movement. And a lot of the things that you see ODM doing are deliberate. If you say ODM retreats to some tribal enclave, which one? Because I don't think you can bottle up ODM into any political or ethnic pigeonhole. It's a movement that really cuts across the entire length and breadth of the country. I know that we have sustained a certain character, a certain fidelity to principle in terms of management of a political movement. And so even the negotiations going on, we have negotiated across the board. Those that have fallen through have fallen through. Those that have succeeded, and we have moved on.
Joe, but hold on. As Joe prepares to ask your question, I'm going to call up 2 of my last cartoon strips. As I line them up, go ahead, Joe. Just ask your question. But I'll want Mheshimiwa to respond to those as we go along.
Yeah, Mheshimiwa, I mean,
can you see that one? Can you see? I'll give you one closer to you. When you see that, when Kenyans wake up to such pictures, what are they seeing?
Okay.
What is your reaction to that kind of? This is what Kenyans are looking at. This is what Kenyans are thinking of you people out there.
This is not we people. These are 2 characters.
Come back. I want to see Waziri answer this. Huh?
I mean, when you say you people,
you're all leaders.
The political.
You're politicals. You're all leaders.
These are 2 characters, and Kenyans have got every right to question, to pass judgment, and to determine what they want. And by the way, at the end of the day, if Kenyans determine that they want a particular leader, it's up to them. They say every society gets the leaders they deserve. But these are not we people. This is not a Babu Namwamba.
What happened to this lady?
Me.
Would you work with this lady?
Martha.
Oh, you recognize. That didn't take you a second?
No, I mean...
that didn't take you a second? Would you work with her? Alliances are being built. Coalitions are being made. She's one of the people who've had a history of reform in this country. Yeah?
Why not? Why not? I mean...
what happened there? Why is she not attractive to you guys? Or why are you guys not attractive to her?
You see, partnerships and political alliances must be between willing partners. And Lou, you know this even when you seek to date anybody. there must be some natural chemistry.
I am not setting you up.
And there must be consensus.
I just needed to know.
There must be a meeting of the minds.
How much further will this go? Joe, I know you had a question before we let Waziri go.
Yes, I mean, I just heard Mheshimiwa talk about principle vis-a-vis the other considerations that are less noble, for instance, like tribalism, which everybody knows in this country dictates even the kind of coalitions that are being built now. I mean, I wonder why no one is looking for Professor Kiapi, for example, who, if you look at where he comes from, maybe it's considered one of the minority communities, or someone from the coast. Why is it that the alliances are between the people who come from what are generally considered as the majority communities, you know, the larger Luhya, Luo, Kikuyu? And is that a coincidence, do you think?
Is that the only place where there's chemistry, ethnic chemistry?
The ethnicity is a factor in this, is a political factor in this country, and I think you'd be pretentious to imagine otherwise, unless you live on Neptune and you just landed here yesterday.
Is it overriding or just a factor?
It's a major factor. It's a major factor. It's actually a major factor.
I can see that with the caution with which you're trying to answer the question.
No, Louis. Louis, I'm being very deliberate.
Yeah, but this is not you, man. The way you know it, you're on the go with this thing.
It's a major factor, Louis.
That's better.
It's a major factor, and that is not. I mean, it cannot be gainsaid. But at the same time, I think in any society, political parties are not engaged in the game of charity. They are not engaged in the game of business. They are engaged in the game of pursuing, seeking, and exercising power. And when you are picking partners to go to political battle with, you want partners who can best aid the mission to gain power. I mean, when Mitt Romney picked Paul Ryan to be his running mate, did you look at the considerations? He did not just pick anybody from the street.
Babu, don't go there. No. When we saw those people being picked, it was clear.
Yes.
There was a pattern to it.
Yes.
We didn't have people being pushed by default.
But
we saw design all the way. If I was you, I wouldn't use that as an illustration.
Louis, I have to go there because the ultimate consideration is who will best aid my mission to capture power.
Last question.
Ultimately.
So are you confirming that these coming elections are going basically to be decided on the ethnic equation?
I already said this, Martin, that the tribe is a major factor, but I believe it's not the only factor.
But
because if tribe was the only factor, then you could pick anybody from any tribe.
No, I didn't say the only, I said the major factor.
For instance, Martha Karua, I mean, it's interesting.
Okay, this is how I'm going to end this.
No, but let me make this point. The point I was going to make.
Don't draw yours, use mine.
I mean, the point I was going to make is that it does not mean that if you were to pick Martha Karua today,
yes,
she guarantees you the voting block of high ethnicity or high ethnic community. Or if you were to pick, you mentioned Ole Kiapi, but the Ole Kiapi does not come from a minority community. The Maasai are a major voting block.
Yeah, we're not seeing the chemistry. You're feeling the, you guys are not feeling the chemistry.
It does not mean someone has a reason why they would, for instance, go with Ntimama and not Ole Kiapi. So it's not just, it's not that straightforward. It's not just about the ethnic.
I know now you're about to start doing those things you're very good at, but I will end this a different way. So they write, they tell these stories, here they are. Do you have a challenge to them as they run out these stories? Because sometimes you claim they're not capturing the spirit of your new politics. Here are your editors. Give them a challenge as they go ahead.
No, they just need to be realistic. They need to be realistic and not too romantic.
Really?
Sometimes they're too romantic. They're too romantic. They romanticize politics too much. There are just certain basic realities. And also appreciate that there is some intelligent design in what goes on. Because sometimes the way you report as if everything happens by chance. Everything happens by circumstance. No. There is some design in a lot of things that go on.
Should I let that go?
No, they have no challenge to that.
Clearly. So. Okay, they couldn't. I'll let that go for now, but we're not done. The conversation continues, and there's more coming up ahead. Welcome back. The conversation continues on Newsline, and now CMC Motors has received a short-term reprieve after the High Court temporarily stopped plans by one of its key franchises to walk out. The interim orders issued by Lady Justice Jacqueline Kamau stopped the Jaguar Land Rover franchise from terminating its distribution agreement with CMC in favor of a new dealer, the RMA Group. The motor dealer has termed the move as a breach of trust and goodwill by its business partner. Here's KTN's Michael Karanja.
CMC moved to court on Friday to stop the South African-based Jaguar Land Rover Group from terminating its lucrative franchise. In a sworn affidavit, CMC's CEO, Pillay, argues that the move by JLR was unprocedural and that CMC was likely to suffer substantial financial losses considering the huge investment it had made in revamping the Jaguar Land Rover brand. The obligations under the distribution agreement with JLR included revamping its showroom and garage, as well as hiring trained personnel to manage the franchise, all which the motor dealer says has come with huge costs. In a press statement sent out last week, JLR indicated that it would from February 2013 hand over the franchise of the premium motor brands to the RAM Group. According to court papers, the two companies have been engaged in a back-and-forth communication on sustaining the dealership at CMC Motors. However, the decision to terminate the franchise CMC holds is laced with bad faith and strains of business rivalry. The Jaguar Land Rover brand accounts for 30% of CMC's annual unit sales and will no doubt have the auto dealer whose operating profits have been falling since 2008. Faced with the harsh reality of losing one of its more lucrative brands, CMC Motors appears ready and willing to fight to the very end to ensure the Jaguar Land Rover brand remains with it. All this at a time when it is still engaged in long court battles with some of its major shareholders, not to mention having its shares suspended from trading at the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Michael Karanja, KTN Business Today.
The Consumer Federation of Kenya has filed a suit seeking to block the government from switching Nairobi from analog television transmission to digital transmission. The federation body wants the Information Ministry and the Communications Commission of Kenya to be compelled to delay their migration until the global deadline of 2015. Now, the suit follows the minister's notice that it will switch all televisions in Nairobi that currently broadcast using the analog system to the digital system by December 31st. Although the global deadline is 2015, Kenya has a self-imposed deadline of 2013. The country plans to effect the change in Nairobi first before the rest of the country. COFRIC has also set up a 1 million signature campaign to block the ministry from the planned switch-off. The High Court in Nairobi has certified the suit as urgent and directed the Consumers Lobby Group to serve the respondents for hearing. The Nairobi Securities Exchange Board of Directors has approved the registration of nominated advisors for the Growth Enterprise Market segment, dubbed Nomads. Firms approved to second nominees include Broadbridge Capital, NIC Capital, Emerging African Capital, as well as Standard and Mutual. A statement from the board indicated the nominees will assist eligible small and medium-sized enterprises to list on Growth Enterprise Market segment and comply with good corporate governance practices. The retention of a nominated advisor is a requirement for listing on the Growth Enterprise Market segment. And now we do the financial markets review. nurses' strike has continued for a second week, disrupting operations in several public hospitals. The nurses are demanding registration and formal recognition of their union, the Kenya National Union of Nurses. A section of nurses at the Rift Valley Provincial General Hospital joined the rest of nurses countrywide in the ongoing strike. They say the government must fulfill their demands, which also include a salary increment. Nurses at the Meru Level 5 hospital also joined the strike today in solidarity with their colleagues in other parts of the country. The Kenya National Union of Nurses officials say they will continue to mobilize their members to continue with the boycott until their demands are met. Now to the North Rift, where one clan is still fighting to reap the benefits of independence, nearly half a century since its son staged a heroic resistance against the British. Led by legendary Koitalel Arab Samoei, the Talai clan of the Nandi fought off wave after wave of regiments sent on a punitive expedition by the Imperial British East Africa Company. But as KTN's Mercy Kandiye reports, today the small clan has little to show for its gallant efforts.
Imangele Iman. Kingele King. King.
This is perhaps the only existing picture of legendary Nandi leader Koitalel Samoei. His red eyes are said to have distinguished him from other children when he was young, but what he left behind after his death made him one of the greatest leaders among the Nandi community, and one of the men in his lineage proudly tells his story.
The first freedom fighter in Kenya who resisted the British for a period of 15 years. Though it is recorded 11 years.
Although the Nandi resistance story is notable, even as the country celebrates 49 years of independence, the Talai clan know little of independence. As a result of what the colonialists termed as their rebellious nature, the entire community was uprooted and moved to detention camps, and their land taken over. Their detention camps have since turned into homes.
Uhuru wazungu weuze wakanyakua mashamba yetu, kwa hivyo hatujapata mashamba
na bado koloni bado iko. Atuseme sisi tunapata uhuru bado, labda hii ndege peke yake napata uhuru.
Koitalel's great-grandson Kipchoge Arap Chomu, author of the book Unyielding Hope, The Life and Times of Koitalel Samoei, tells me of Koitalel's famed ability to see into the future, predicting the coming of the colonialist and the invasion of the Nandi land, and says that the dispossessed Talai will launch a complaint against the British government, like the Mau Mau.
You know, Koitalel Samoei opted to see a free Nandi, a free Kalenjin community, a free Kenyan community whereby there is no colonialism, there is no robbery of land, where the Kalenjins and more so the Nandi community and the wider Kenyan communities are living in freedom, in peace, cohesiveness, and in togetherness.
At the Koitalel mausoleum in Nandi lie the remains of Koitalel Samoei. 2 fig trees here, a symbol among the Talai clan that a great leader was buried here.
One of Koitalel Samoei's final prophecy is that when the 2 fig trees just beside his burial site, when their branches intertwine, the Nandi community will regain their glory.
The branches have intertwined. These 3 batons belonging to Koitalel recently returned from Britain, considered another success. Koitalel's head, however, is still in Britain, but still they wait in hope that their children will see the fruits of their forefathers' struggle.
It is this specific prophecy that the Nandi community will regain their glory that is keeping the Talai clan hope. Hope that their Uhuru is near. Mercy Kandi reporting for KTN at the Koitalel Samoei's mausoleum in the county of Nandi.
Well, comedy has many uses. I was reading this book by a friend of mine, Sunny Bindra. It's called The Peculiar Kenyan. And on page 12 he says, You can often achieve more by ridiculing people rather than jumping up and down in anger. Guys, we'll talk about this after it runs. This is Mshamba's diary.
Wewe wakati kama huo ambapo tunakaribia masuala ya uchaguzi, umemidentify, umemgundua ni yupi ambaye ndiye kiongozi bora? Na nakwambia all the way kutoka maeneo ya Ingo kwenye laini Mshamba.
Yes, hapo nilete maisha. Very nice mwende, asante sana. Pass. Mimi nimesikia mchatala ikanikusa roho ikakucha kwa kichwa, nikaona wacha nikongote simu. Pass. Hiyo maneno unasema kwamba a good leader. Wacha nikuambie, mimi nina qualities of a good leader. A good leader ni mtu ambaye kwanza familia yake anahakikisha iko fantastic. Yani anahakikisha ametunza familia yake. Akitunza familia yake inamaanisha kwamba yeye anaweza tutunza pia vizuri. Basi, quality number 2 ni mtu ambaye anasikiza maneno ya watu vizuri ili aweze kujua watu wako na shida gani. Si mtu tukipigia simu tunampata mteja. Kwani tulipigia kura mteja?
Simu yake ikuwe na charge pia.
Na pia a good leader ni ule mtu ambaye analeta maendeleo, mahospitali, mashule, yani maparapara ziko fantastic. Si mtu ambaye badala ya kutengenezea parapara anatuletea mashamba. Huyo si mtu wa maana. Na wacha nikuambie mwende, mtu wa maana ule ambaye hata mimi sahi kura yangu niko nayo kwa mfuko.
Umeona nani wewe? Unakuwa Ingo ama huko nyumbani hizo ndio maneno ulikuwa unafanya?
Hata kama angekuwa hapo studio ningemletea kura yangu aende naye apike mwenyewe. Ni nyota. Yes, nyota. Nyota is the best. Huyo ndio sasa mimi naenda kupatia kura. Mimi sitaki kutupa kura yangu, nataka kupatia mtu kura ambaye anaweza nisaidia kwa maisha. Na huyo ni nyota. Yes, mtu amesoma, mtu anafikiria kuhusu watu, mtu ambaye yuko na familia nzuri. Yes. Hey. Asante. Very nice.
Safi sana msikilizaji. Anaitwa Mshamba T kwa Sepetayo. Yeye anasema kiongozi anayemtaka ni huyo. Wewe wako ni gani?
Mshamba. Unasikia vile hii miwa iko na sukari hivi? Angekuwa ni ukali iko na hii sukari. Waluya wote tungekuwa tumekuwa admitted. Ukali imetunyonga. Tungekula sana.
Wewe na chakula? Una ugonjwa wa chakula inakusumbua kichwa.
Kwanza wewe unapikia nani kura?
Kutwanga kura? Si George. George.
Tena umekataa sio nyota.
Nyota? Mimi nipikia nyota kura. Wacha nikwambie. Hapa tunaenda kupika kura. Si kutupa kura.
Mimi kura zangu.
Sisi kura ni kwa George. George is the standing governor. Anangoja tu kukaa chini. Kwa George napika kura. Huko kwingine kwa nyota ni kutupa kura.
Wewe, George achai kufanyia nini?
Hakuna na sitaki anifanyie chochote, ni mtu tu wa nyumbani.
Na wale watu wana watu wa nyumbani, watapikia wazazi wao.
Wapikie sisi ambao tuko na watu wa nyumbani.
Mimi niko pato sikiamua, lakini namtetea tu nyota. Sikiamua.
Akikupa 50 utaamua?
Bora nipatie 50 ya coins. Sikai kwa mfuko nitembee na 50 nitumie siku mingi.
Wapo George akupa 50
George
unapikia kura.
Ongea na vizuri.
If you were laughing at yourself, because that's what Kenyans are. Joe, Martin?
No, I mean,
turn around. I mean, this is not fiction.
No, I mean, we saw it the other day, last week. I mean, it happened with the coalitions today. Today, we've seen even Charity Ngilu has redefected. I mean, she was there 1 week ago at KICC. She arrived. I think a lot of people didn't expect her. Signed something, actually, or selling something. Maybe we need to see what these people signed. Maybe they just signed some plain pieces of paper and then tell us they've signed. Because honestly, why would you sign something today and 3-4 days later, and we were told these things were legally binding? So I think it really is symbolic of what happens.
Chamba is not crazy.
He's not crazy.
Yeah.
He's just depicting what happens in our society. And it's the unfortunate thing that you look at when elections come, Either people are voting because they've been given money, or people are voting because they know this person or the other person comes from our clan or our ethnic community or from somewhere that we associate with. But I hope as time passes on, this is a culture that we're going to eliminate, because with the new constitutional dispensation, there's a qualification and the criteria set of who a leader should be, what kind of leader you're supposed to vote for.
I really don't think the Constitution will help us much in that regard, because think about it, right now the Constitution stipulates a lot of different things, but we've seen one, the MPs trying to tinker with it. Secondly, even in the counties where you think that, well, now there is all this equalization fund, there is all these seats that have been reserved from disadvantaged people, and yet you still find right now there is something they call negotiated democracy, that okay, you guys are more than us, so fine, let's give you the senators the seat.
Ethnically
driven. Yes,
that's exactly what was
so you cannot legislate good manners in politics. I think it just has to evolve from inside out, because as it is now, we have the good laws, but hey, we don't have good politics.
I agree. That's what I'm saying. It is going to evolve with time. We've just had a new constitution at this particular point in time, in that we never had this kind of dispensation. What now needs to move us to that next level is a kind of civic education that people are going to be empowered with, to be able to know what kind of leaders they need to have in power. Because when we have a devolved government...
What level of civic education will permeate to that level? Because Mshamba's level is where the voter is. To tell that guy, it's not about ni mtu wa nyumbani.
Yeah,
what kind of education will get that level?
It's going to be...
Because even professors, by the way, just talk to any of them here in Nairobi. When they speak in English at Parliament buildings, they're nationalists. But when they go to the village, what do they say? It is our turn to eat. Those people have been doing this for the last 10 years. Honestly, it's not a question of education. I think it's just how we organize our politics. Who doesn't know that tribalism is a bad thing? They will tell you even in the village. They know it is a bad thing, but they still do it anyway.
But who perpetuates that tribalism? It is our leaders. So the moment we get rid of bad leaders, we're going to have people who have something up their head, who are going to cultivate these cultures we are talking about, and the goals that are enshrined in our constitution, the values that we are supposed to cherish and nurture in our basic, even right from
So what will you write
pre-primary
tomorrow to tell people it's not about mtu wa nyumbani?
What you do that is for now, for this kind of elections, trust me, you heard even the minister say, it's basically, that's why he even could not answer the question.
It's too late.
He knows it's too late for now. These elections are going to be decided on an ethnic platform. That is for sure.
Joe,
you can't wish that away.
Mshamba's vote will carry the day.
In this election, yes, it will carry the day. I think probably even the next election, maybe 2022 or something like that. That might, quite frankly, because as it is right now, the same politicians who have gone to school, some of them are very educated, but they will still go there and speak in mother tongue and say something totally different. The hope that I see, which is probably where Martin was coming from, in the new constitution, is the fact that it will de-emphasize this sort of mystery that has been there about the presidency, for example, that this is somebody who is their all and be all, they can do whatever they want. Right now, the president can do something and they are questioned. So maybe with time, people will say, maybe there isn't such a big deal about the presidency, and that way, we'll start finding only serious people running for president because they would want to do something. They're not just going there to peddle and wield power.
Well, this is just an interesting book I was quoting. This is Sani Bindra talking about the peculiar Kenyan. This comedy, as much as it looks fun, it looks like it's a joke, but when somebody can turn around like that, and you have a discussion where you go and say that you will vote for Joe Ageo, and tomorrow you then turn around and say you will vote for Martin because he comes from your village, then we're in trouble. Last comments, gentlemen?
My view is that, I mean, we've had this notion that people are waiting to have an extension of the registration of voting. Let people come out, let them register as voters, and let people go and decide on who they want to, I mean, who their leader is going to be. for once, let's try and make a change in terms of, even if we are that ethnically challenged in terms of who we are supposed to vote for, but let people go and decide who their leader is going to be. Don't wait after the next election, then we're going to say, oh, I would have wished so and so to be there, but you have a chance now. And I think we have a chance to chart the destiny of this country. Let's do it. It's possible.
For me, I'm thinking, let's try and, even though the tribe might be the overriding thing out there, I think there's still room for us to be issue-based. Fine, they say, okay, it is in Muranga, it is TNA, but look at those people who are running on the TNA ticket. Is there something that you can use to differentiate them and say, well, they are all TNA, but at least this one stands for ABCD? Maybe that is a small way in which we can start to push the pin a little bit.
Well, a poor voter makes for a poor leader.